Welcome back, all you beautiful souls, to another episode of Aligned and Alive. I'm your host, Chrissy May, and today we have a remarkable guest on. If you've ever felt stuck in your own story, whether in business, life, or mindset, this episode is for you. My guest today is the definition of relentless. She's built her success by pushing past limits, making bold moves, and knowing when to hit the reset button. We're diving deep into the art of reinvention, how to recognize when your life needs a deep clean, and the power of making changes that actually stick. If you're ready to shake things up and step into a bigger, bolder version of yourself, keep listening because this conversation is going to be pure fire. It's an honor to sit and share in conversation with the incredibly fierce and fearless Anne Karber.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. It's
Yeah.
always so good to see you.
Yeah, thanks.
Anne and I, just a quick note, I'd like to give everyone a quick backstory. So we actually met last year at my retreat in Sedona. And so we quickly became soul sisters, and we are birthday twins, like actual birthday twins, birthday date, year. And I think she's older by maybe 6 hours.
Ouch. I'll take that.
I love it. So there's a lot I want to unpack today, but I always love to have you go back, my guests, take us back to the younger version of themselves to show us, where their life began, what maybe obstacles you had to overcome.
Sure.
And all the good things.
Sure. Well, for me, I was born to parents in South Dakota. There was 5 of us. I was the middle, like official middle, 2 older sisters, 2 younger brothers. I am the epitome of a middle child, definitely the loud, obnoxious, need the attention, that whole vibe. My dad was a farmer and rancher, and my mom was a homemaker. When we were, I guess it was probably 9 or 10, we moved to Colorado. So my childhood in South Dakota was what I would describe as feral. We lived 7 miles outside of the closest town, which was a town of a couple hundred, very close to family there, but don't remember really having a lot of friends. We went to different schools, and it was the whole thing. So moved to Colorado, went into kind of more of a traditional situation, but my parents were very into organized religion. We went to different schools because my mom, thought, okay, let's go to this, parochial school. Now we're switching to this one. This one didn't fit for one of the kids, so we all moved. And so I changed schools every year, up until high school, and then went to the same high school. I mention that because I feel like that definitely lends to who I am as a human being. I'm very scrappy in the most amazing way, I think, because I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not in that kind of way, because it isn't that I don't feel fear. It's just that it doesn't define me. I'm able to just kind of jump in and do what needs to be done wherever that is. I moved out of my parents' house when I was very young, had everything to do with the organized religion component of it. And I just wasn't the right fit for them. I was the rebellious child. I was the one that was always doing outrageous stuff from a very young age, got into trouble with, drugs and alcohol. It wasn't a vibe for me. So I moved out with my then boyfriend when I was 16 years old, finished high school, got a full-time job, and found myself married and pregnant at 18 years old, and moved to Arizona. Found out I was pregnant on the way, which is then moving away from your entire support system. Didn't know anyone in Arizona. My first husband was a controlling asshole. He was not somebody that I was ever really amazed with, but he was somebody that was a means to an end for me to get out of my parents' house. And so it was one of those things where, okay, this is just what I do now. I had my oldest daughter, who's now 28, when I was 19 and a minute. Then decided after a couple years I didn't want her to be an only child. So then I had my second daughter. And I remember finding myself at 24 being the oldest 24-year-old on the planet. All of the other 24-year-olds were worried about what they were going to go out and do for fun that weekend, or what nail color or hairstyle. And I was worried about making enough money to put Pampers on babies and formula. And I just remember growing up so incredibly fast, even from when I first moved out, of my parents' house. So you go from 16 to living at home to having people that protect you to living with a boy that's, a couple of years older than you are, constant partying, constant all of these things. I have lots of stuff in my pile that's, trauma-based, which is, again, totally fine, except I didn't realize that until I was much later in life. And so I drug that around. And I feel like the stuff that I drug around, it was like a wrecking ball behind me, and I didn't even realize it. Yeah, I didn't have, and this is nothing against my mom because I adore her, but I didn't have a good example of what emotional intelligence looked like, of what a lot of things look like. And so I just was doing the best that I could with what I had. And I feel like what I had was not necessarily amazing, but it never occurred to me like that. I never was the victim with stuff. I never was, woe is me. It was, okay, what's the next thing? What are we going to be doing? In every job that I had, at every business venture that I got into, it was, I want the next thing. I was always very motivated by that. To me, money was freedom, and so the freedom to be able to make your own choices, the freedom to be able to get away from a controlling husband, the freedom to get out of your parents' house, like whatever that looked like, money was always freedom to me. And I ended up chasing that to what I will say now is an unhealthy degree, because that was my measure of success. And I did that at the cost of family and relationships. Not because I did anything bad to those people, but that I was just a workaholic and that I would just pour myself into those things. And so, looking back, was that the best thing? Maybe not. Would I change anything? Not a chance, because all of those things have led to where I am now. I got divorced when I was 24, got remarried when I was 27, and had my third child, who has just turned 18 a couple weeks ago, which is crazy. And started a business, started my first business when I was in my late 20s with my husband. We did a construction business, and it was amazing. And we very quickly made it very successful because we just both were willing to put everything we had into it. We started it from nothing. We didn't have anything. We ended up having like 10 grand that we scraped together from like a bonus and, something else. And I was still working my full-time job as a project manager for a construction company. And so it was just kind of a fun story because we had 2 little kids, and then I was pregnant with Wiley while we were doing it. And so it was a lot of hustle. It was a lot of hustle. And we had a good time doing it. Along the way, we did lots of different side hustles on top of that. I was in the vacation rental market when that first started, and since have gotten out of that. But it was always something like, what are those hustles going to be to just kind of advance us to the next thing? And again, because I thought money was freedom, and that was what was so important to be able to do that. So I didn't really slow down very much. I didn't really rest. I came to a point where when I was 37, about 10 years ago, my sister that's one up from me in the birth order passed away unexpectedly, and it sent me off the rails. I didn't even realize it. For someone who had spent her entire life not expressing emotion because it looked messy to me, and it wasn't something that I was interested in being vulnerable. I wasn't interested in showing people the other side. Didn't want to see it myself. It wasn't that I was hiding anything. It was like, no, everything's fine. I had this joke with my brothers that we were all dead inside because you just didn't have feelings. It's like, no, it's fine. Everything's fine. Well, come to find out, everything isn't fine.
Right. I was going to say, yeah, it's not fine.
It's not fine, right? And you find that out. And so when my sister passed away, I was already a heavy drinker, and took that to a whole new level. Still functioning, still running my business, still getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, still doing all the things, but my life started revolving around alcohol because I didn't know how to deal with grief. The loss of that and the circumstances with her death were such that I didn't know how to process. I for someone who doesn't process any emotion, then you have the granddaddy of emotion, which to me is grief. It shut my whole world down. And so I spent the next 2 years just taking a wrecking ball to my life without even really realizing it. And I ended up going to rehab in, I guess it was 8 years ago, and getting sober and really realizing that rehab isn't just them putting the alcohol up on a higher shelf. It's kind of figuring out why you're drinking and let's fix that. And it has just started this whole entire journey for me of realizing what's important to me. We sold our business back in 2000, moved up and took care of some family business for a few years in northern Phoenix or northern Arizona, and came back a couple of years ago and just find myself on this journey of surrendering to the universe, allowing it to put me where I'm supposed to be, and not really having any preferences, which for somebody who is a self-admitted control freak, I always needed to have control over things because let me handle it. I've got this, and realizing you don't have anything and you don't need to. That's the beauty of it. The big guy will take care of all of that for you. And you just kind of, as long as you're aligned and in tune with things will happen how they're supposed to. And you can just trust that. You don't even have to question that, So all of this work that I've done over the last 8 years with getting sober and all of these different healing modalities and all of these things that I've done to kind of heal the junk that was in my pile, right? I don't think you're ever done. I think there's always stuff that's there, but being willing to do that work and really allowing trauma to come up and release things and not feel like you have to carry everything. It's been really powerful for me. So being at this place where I'm 47 years old and I'm able to just lean into whatever the universe has for me, which is such a fun thing because I've always, as an adult, been a mom. Now I have my baby who we're going over to Southern California this weekend to look at colleges and, all of the things that go with that. And then he's going to be gone, which is exciting for me. I don't look at it as this like sad ending. It's this amazing beginning. I've never been an adult without having responsibilities of young kiddos. So to be at this place is pretty exciting. But yeah, so that's my journey. We started and sold different businesses over the course of my relationship with my husband, individual stuff that I have going on that's important to me now, and just always willing to hustle. My drive now is different. It used to be that success was measured with money, which, you get all of those things that I thought I was supposed to. And it was like, check, 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 right? Fancy car, amazing house, like all of this stuff. And I've never been more miserable than when I got to where I had all of those things. And I thought, this can't be what it is, And so I think really getting to this place in my life where that's not what the measure of success is money. Like, don't get me wrong. I still,
sure.
I'm not like giving it all to the to the church money or anything. You understand what I'm saying? But that isn't what drives me. Being able to help other people, being able to share with people what I've learned, being able to just do wherever the big guy puts me. That's what I do. And so that's a pretty amazing place to be.
I thank you so much for sharing all of that. I keep feeling when I hear you speak, and of course I've heard your story before. However, I just always feel like that survival, like, just hearing the whole transition of where you came from to where you're, it's just this constant state of survival, which I think is for so many of us that have gone through maybe just difficult beginnings, right? If you will, right? With trauma, with pain, with all the things that we're trying to navigate, and, making just decisions based on what we only know during that time. And I just love hearing everyone's personal message, like the mess becomes your message, right? In order to show up and help serve and support other people along the way. That's how I truly feel. What have you been able to really take away from your former self till now that really helps you show up better for those that you can hopefully lead and inspire?
Just being willing to look at the mess, being willing to take accountability for my part in that, regardless of where that mess was, being able to really say and be vulnerable enough to share that with other people, I think has been huge, because people need that. People need to know, like, hey, I was also sexually abused, or hey, I was also left without blah, 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 whatever those things are. Part of that too is really giving myself credit, which is a recent thing for me, of showing myself grace and really giving myself credit, because I think all of those times I just kept going and going and going and going. You're just in survival mode the whole time. Being able to slow down long enough to kind of, you did that. You made it through that. That's incredible. And then being able to share that with other people so that they can also know, yeah, this isn't going to last forever, or no, this doesn't have to define me. I was very much in this mindset of I'm not the victim. That was really important to me, because there's no power in victimhood to me. And I still stand behind that. But it also can be, you still acknowledge that you went through that. You still acknowledge that that was a really hard thing. And then again, like I just think the universe puts you in places where you, like you said, the mess can be the message, because it does put me in places where there's things that come up that just blow my mind every day. If I lead with vulnerability, other women and other people in my life, even people I've just met, are comfortable enough to share like, oh my God, this is my story. And I think every time we put words to it, it takes some of the shame away when it's shame-based stuff. And so I just think being able to like share my message, share, you know, whatever is coming up for me, that it ends up being really relatable for the people that are around me and impactful for them. So,
you
and
do
for
that very
me.
well on your podcast too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's Get Naked.
Let's Get Naked.
It's raw and real. And I got naked.
You did. You know, it's one of those things where it's, I didn't necessarily know that was the direction things were going. But again, when you surrender to the universe, then you have to just be willing to go in whichever direction it points you. And so, yeah, I get naked pretty regularly on that show. Just, you know, again, there's nothing shameful to hide about stuff. We've all been there. I think we all spend so much time trying to act like we're something that we're not. We're all trying to fit into whatever this amazing mold is. But the crazy thing about that is, even the girl that you think, or even the guy that you think is that person, is that mold, isn't. They're struggling too. Yeah. Some days they don't get out of bed. Some days they have all of the things, you know, so it's like we're all trying for something that actually isn't even a thing. Wouldn't it be easier if we were all just who we wanted to be?
Well, I think, yeah. And I think about that a lot when, especially in this space, and I brought this up in my last episode, is being deeper in this spiritual space, in the spiritual community. I just find it very interesting, and we need to start holding each other to a higher level of integrity and commitment, and in the leadership role specifically, and not judge so much, and really lean into allowing people a lot more, not just words, but allowing them more grace and compassion in their journey, right? Because like your healing process looks different than my healing process.
Yes.
And so how is that fair to show up and tell somebody how to heal?
Absolutely.
And that's just adding more guilt and shame and judgment.
No one needs that.
No, we don't. And that's where I'm having, as I've shared with you, you know, a few weekends ago, I'm having just that moment of real, like, geez, like how is this okay that we can have leaders in this space trying to bring people through transformation and healing, but then judging them in the same process?
Yeah.
What's your take? Because you give always such great perspectives on that. Like, how do you, I already know the answer actually.
No, please ask.
I'm going to ask anyway, because Anne's like, I just don't take any shit.
Exactly.
But how do you, if you're in that space and you feel that someone is shaming you or judging you or attacking you in your own healing journey? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I know exactly what you're saying.
How do you navigate that?
You know, sometimes it doesn't even warrant a response, because generally speaking, it's not worth the energy that goes into that. I think, you know, when you look at the compassion and the judgment and all of those things, we're doing that to ourselves, which is why we're doing it to others. So to me, when I find that from other people, it's generally that they're also maybe haven't worked through that part of their journey where they understand that judgment is way more detrimental to you than it is to the other people that you're judging. And like you said, I don't give a shit about judgment. It's not mine, right? Your opinion of me and how I'm doing my journey, none of my business. I literally couldn't care less. And I feel like that's really important. And I feel like more people need to kind of embrace that, because it doesn't affect me at all what you think about me or what you say about me behind my back. It affects you, right? I mean, and that to me is something where I feel like in general, we all need to be better about standing up for that. And we did talk about that this other weekend too, because it was like, I don't think a lot of people realize it's not enough anymore to just not do it. We need to speak up against that, right? And say, I'm not being part of this. I'm not interested in hanging out with people that don't align with my values. And I'm not judging you. Please, by all means, go do whatever you want. I know that I feel like shit when I'm judging other people, or when I'm sitting in a place that I don't know your story. I don't know where you are in your healing journey. I don't know where you are in, you may have just gotten a phone call, or you may be dealing with, you know, family members that are dealing with other things. All of the things, there's 1,000 different things that could be going into what you're doing. Who in the hell am I to sit in judgment of you about how you're processing part of your journey? Let me help you hold space. Is there something that I can do for you? Is there something that I can help you with? Let's all come from that place instead of like, oh my God, can you believe what so-and-so is doing? Or she didn't do it in the same way that I know. Well, your way no one's way is the right way. It's the right way for you. Excellent. That's fantastic. don't put yourself on somebody else in that way. I just think it's so inappropriate.
Absolutely. It's like the gatekeepers of healing, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm the only
Like
way.
who put you in charge? You know what I mean? Like
It is my way or the highway.
exactly. Like who put you in charge of everyone, you know?
Yeah.
So
I love that. And I think this is where, when we talk about like divine masculine and divine feminine energies, like this is really where that divine masculine can kind of come forward, you know? But even the divine feminine, which is so powerful in so many ways, I just feel like it's obviously a dance, but also a way to hold each other accountable. And I keep coming back to that, rather than like finding solutions. I'm always a solution-oriented person. Like I don't want to just talk crap. I want to actually find a solution for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think that's powerful. And I think also that speaks volumes to other people around you when that's the place that you come from, right? Because everybody can just sit and talk crap about other people,
Right.
like or judge how they're doing things. What good does that do? Maybe offer a solution, maybe offer a different perspective, maybe ask, what does support look like for you right now? If that person is somebody that's close enough in your circle where you would want to offer them support,
Right.
or don't even engage because it's not worth the energy if it's somebody that isn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. What are your go-to practices now that you've really sat into the seat of your beautiful journey that you've been on the last several years? Because it looks so much different than it did, I'm sure, 10, 15 years ago.
No
So
doubt.
do you have like a certain rhythm that you...
I do.
I know you
Yeah,
do.
I have probably a handful of things that are just musts for me in order to stay kind of tuned in, plugged in, I say. Really love yin yoga. I have a couple of instructors that are just fabulous that I plug in with that. Journaling, meditation, really just being quiet. I never used to do that. I used to run at 1,000 miles an hour and just blow the doors off of everything every single minute and not be able to sit in the quiet. Being able to just sit, I think if people did that and just got curious, I think those two things, just be quiet and curious about what you're thinking, about what you're feeling, about why things are a certain way. It will lead you down a path that I think is well worth it, you know?
Yeah, I love that. And because the answers are always within.
Oh, they are. They are.
I know we speak a lot about that, but it really is like when you can take some moments, and there's, like God is within us, right? So like all the answers are within us.
Absolutely.
We are so connected if we allow ourselves to go deeper to receive all the information we need.
Yeah.
Yet we're always wasting energy looking outside of ourselves to fix what we already know
Yeah.
that is within.
Which is crazy. I was watching this little skit about something, and it was talking about, like, it was some SNL skit, but it was talking about people on their phones, and they're like, we're not getting enough sleep. And the doctor's like, well, put your phone down an hour before you go to bed. They're like, what else could we do? He's like, how about 30 minutes? They're like, what else? Is there a pill or a surgery or something we can take? But we are so all plugged into just numbing out with other things that are distracting us so that we don't have to sit, so that we don't have to be quiet. You know, if you just journal or, go for a walk without anything, without music, without your phone. I know that sounds outrageous to people, but just do that. Look at nature around you and how amazing that is. You've never felt closer to God in your life than when you can just be outside in nature, listening to the birds or watching the wind and all of that. That's amazing. That's for your viewing pleasure whenever you want it. Just go outside,
I agree. What comes to mind right now when I hear you is freedom. And there was a clip just recently, I think it was even today, and what freedom is. And it's not freedom to do whatever the heck you want, but it's freedom of choice. And I really love that. I think that was from Peter Crone, who I love. He's a mind architect, he's known as. What have you done specifically the last probably 5 years that has allowed you to now be in a space of freedom of choice? Because you have so much going on. You run a few companies. She's a badass. Let me just say that. Anne is a badass. And for those that would love to partake and have better choices to experience the walks in nature, maybe in the middle of the day, or to do more of that self-love, self-care, what's your advice for the busy entrepreneur or business owner that says, I don't have enough time?
I don't have time. Yeah. No, which is, you hear that all the time. Two different things. No one has enough time. You make time. You decide what's the priority for you, which we all get to make that decision. I think the biggest thing that it comes down to for me is just discipline, because discipline is a commitment to yourself. And if you're going to disappoint yourself so that you don't disappoint others, you have your priorities wrong. Discipline is, I have a goal, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be, it can be the things, the food, the fitness, what is my time going to look like? But you say, okay, I want to do these things. And then if you're not disciplined enough to follow through with those because you're not respecting yourself, honoring yourself enough to want those things bigger than maybe it's somebody else that needs that time, or maybe it's something else that comes up, which I went through a whole period of my life where it was all of my things went out the door first because somebody else needed something. And I would always say, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. It's not true, right? We make time for whatever we want to. So being intentional with what your time is and where you spend it. I have this whole analogy that I talk about Skittles and energy, right? I visualize energy and Skittles, but be very intentional with where you're going to spend that. So if you say, I want these things, I want this business, I want to, spend time. I want this business, but I'm not going to do anything about it. Well, you're not aligning your actions with your intentions, and it's never going to work. So having goals that you say, okay, this is what I want to have, and then aligning your actions for that and being disciplined enough to say, okay, it is this business, I'm going to sit down for an hour every day, and I'm going to plan, or I'm going to work towards this, or I'm going to, whatever it is that you're going to do to advance that goal, the intentions for that. You have to be willing to do that. You have to be disciplined enough to make the time to do that for yourself. You get to choose. Even Beyonce only gets 24 hours, and I realize she's got a whole staff and she's fabulous, but she still only gets 24 hours, right? So you get to choose what you do with your time. You get to choose what you do with your Skittles. If you're wasting them on things that aren't bringing value to your life, that are draining you, that are wasted on relationships and people that don't deserve you, think about that, because those are the things that are taking away from you being able to do stuff in business, or you being able to work towards your goals with things. You don't realize you're making the choice, but you're absolutely making the choice. If you go home and sit down in front of the TV for 2 hours every night, it's a choice. I don't know what you want me to say. You chose to do that. I don't watch a lot of TV. That's why I'm successful, because I'm willing to hustle. I'm willing to be the first one in and the last one out. And that has never hurt my feelings, right? But then people from the outside look and say, oh, you're so lucky. It has nothing to do with luck. I love to hear that. I love to hear when people say that, because in my heart, I just chuckle, oh, you're so lucky. I'm not a big TV watcher. I'm intentional with my time. I try not to be somebody that numbs out, because I think a lot of people do that and they don't even realize, and then they make excuses. Don't make excuses for yourself.
Well, it's intentionality. That's what it comes down to.
Absolutely.